everyone. We're going to get started. I just wanted to thank you for joining our final webinar in our Fall 16 series. This was rescheduled from last semester, and it's presented by the EdTech faculty at Canisius College. My name is Lauren Kiesick, and I work in the Grad Admissions Office. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A session on your screen. You'll be able to ask any questions that you have, and we'll go ahead and answer them throughout. I'll turn it over to Jason so we can get started.
Hello, my name is Jason Steinagel. I'm a adjunct professor at Canisius College in the Graduate School of Education. And this is a Google seminar that deals with practical applications of Google tools in the classroom. I was inspired last summer and the summer before that to actually integrate Google in my 7th grade social studies classroom at Hamburg Middle School. I was a presenter there. I learned many new tools and ways to integrate the technology into the classroom, and Google really has changed not only the way I teach, but how my students actually learn and show their learning. With Google, we have self-graded assessments, essay writing, and research projects can be done very easily, and these projects I'm going to offer you be modified for any grade level for any curriculum. I just want to let you know up front, this is not a tutorial. It's just an overview of what I've used in the classroom and what the possibilities are for you in your classroom as well. As I said before, my name is Jason Steinagel. I'm a 7th grade social studies teacher at Hamburg Middle School. I teach early American history from Native American culture all the way up through Reconstruction after the Civil War. Years ago, I was a technology integration specialist. I was at Hamburg School, and I actually integrated programs at the district level, and I also help teachers integrate technology into their own curriculum as well. And also an adjunct professor at Canisius College in the Graduate School of Education. We actually have an EdTech program where you can actually earn a master's degree and certifications in technology integration online. It's a wonderful program, and I hope that you consider joining us for a program. A couple things I want to just get out of the way very quickly. In the Hamburg School District, they've embraced Google Classroom and Google tools throughout our district. They've given an account not only for the teachers, but also for each student. And this Google account allows everyone to access Google Drive and Gmail. That's very, very important for all the pieces to work together. So there's got to be some kind of top-down approach with authority to create a username and password Google accounts for all the people in your environment. And Google accounts will lead to different tools I'll show you later. Google Drive, and I'll access Docs, which is a word processing document, Spreadsheets, which is more like Excel and number crunching, and Slides, which is similar to PowerPoint. You also need a Google Classroom account for each teacher. And when you put your materials on Google Drive, you are legally giving up your intellectual property rights to those materials. So I just want to let you know that whatever I put on my Hamburg Google Drive account, it's now no longer my property. It's Google's and also Hamburg Central School District. So that's something I want you to be aware of. That the district now has those rights to your creations. You also need, for this integration to be successful, is access to the internet. I know some, especially in the high school level, different devices like your own cell phones, for example, can be used. You also could need Chromebooks to work in the classroom, and you have a very healthy and robust wireless system to make sure that everyone connects seamlessly and efficiently to work on these projects. I also want you to please keep in mind too and consider that some students and families do not have computers in their homes. So all the different projects and assignments are all done in the classroom. And I give my students time. We have working lunches. We also have study halls throughout the day that the students can actually use technology beyond just the classroom time. So please make sure that equity issues are addressed when you assign these projects. There's also processes and procedures that have to be decided throughout your building. You all know that passwords have to be protected, and with the students and with the teachers. So please make sure you're aware of that. The rosters with the students' pictures should also be protected. And when you're sharing your classroom's rosters with other teachers, with the students themselves, make sure that you're aware of privacy issues and confidentiality. And we're not a one-to-one school district just yet. Some districts are where they actually provide one Chromebook for every student. We actually have carts in our Hamburg Middle School, 30 Chromebooks per cart. So as you're planning to integrate technology, please make sure you have the Chromebooks available for you and your students to use to be successful. And that means planning ahead for weeks or months at a time so you can register and sign up these carts according to your school procedures that you have the technology available for you. And I also wanted to know too that Google is not a grade book. So after all of the tricks I'm going to show you on how to integrate technology, eventually those numbers have to go into the district approved grade system. So there's no connection as we have right now for Google and Google Drive and the tests and assessments and projects right into a grade book. It has to be entered manually. So that's one caveat I want you to be aware of too. Also, I want you to know that I can't see any of you. So if you have any questions during this next hour, please let me know. I think that Canisius will actually intercede on my behalf and pause the presentation so that you can ask questions throughout the seminar. So please make sure you ask. Okay? You okay? All right.
Yes, ready to go.
Okay. These ideas and strategy applications may work for me, my 7th grade social studies classroom, but I want you to know that you have to be mindful of your audience, the resources you have available for your students, and please modify, change, and adapt, and integrate these as you see fit. Management communication. What is Google Drive? Google Drive is a file storage and synchronization service created by Google. It allows you to store files in the cloud. This is an internet-based hard drive in the old computer technology world. And you can actually share files with anyone who has a Gmail account. Hamburg has decided to restrict my sharing of the files with only people within Hamburg. But if you have your own personal Google Drive system, you can also share those files then with anyone you see fit. So that's one workaround. The district just restricts your sharing abilities. You can also edit documents. So if you have a Google Doc or a slideshow or a spreadsheet, you can actually share that document or that slideshow or the sheet with anyone you wish, and they can actually edit in real time. And that means students or other teachers as well, if you're sharing lesson plans, or even beyond just homework assignments, you can actually share work and lesson plan ideas with other teachers too. It's what the teacher sees. I'm leery of the internet sometimes. You always have the backup plan. So my backup plan is going to be use screenshots, so it's a little easier for me to navigate. And if you need me to actually show you something live demonstration, we won't happen to do that. So just let me know, and we're more than happy to share that with you live if necessary. So this is what the Canisius College Google Drive looks like. I have a similar setup for Hamburg Middle School.
You'll just need to share your screen, Jason.
I'm sorry, I thought I did that.
It went back to your webcam.
Oh, it did. Oh, thank you. I'm glad. I don't know how to. Okay, I'm not sure what happened here. You can't see my screen?
Nope, you're still showing your webcam, so if you just go on the share screen, you'll be able to pull up your document.
I'm not sure where this shared screen is. Able to help me find where the shared screen is located?
It's on the bottom.
I'm not seeing anything on the bottom of my screen. I don't see. Let me see if I can just log back in again to the webinar. Thank you for your patience with me. See it now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Did the screen just die out, or was it always off?
It was always up, but it's on now, so we're good to go.
Okay. This is what the Google Drive symbol looks like, if you're familiar with it. And here's what Google Drive actually offers. There's a new button there in the top left corner. You can create a new folder. You can upload a file you've already created. So if you've already invested in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, you can always upload those files too. You can even upload an entire folder, which is very helpful, especially if you've got multiple documents or presentations in one container. You can also create new docs, spreadsheets, or Google Slides. This is actually Microsoft Word, similarities to the Word documents. This is actually Excel, and this is actually PowerPoint. This is Google versions of word processing, spreadsheets, and presentation tools. This is what my Hamburg School District website looks like. As a 7th grade social studies teacher, I teach early American history, and what I've done is I actually labeled all of the folders in the drive with my curriculum unit, and I've alphabetized them in chronological order throughout history so that I know I can find them very easily. Calendar and class guide is here. U.S. and New York maps, culture, Native Americans, all the way up through Reconstruction and the final exam, as well as tests and the miscellaneous pieces that I would need to my teaching. There's a connection now between Google Drive and Google Classroom. If you label with alphabetical order with the letters, it's much easier then to manage, in my opinion, in Google Classroom. When you actually post announcements to the students, you can actually attach certain files and folders, documents, sheets, whatever you need in order, and it's always going to be there for you if you have everything organized on the back end in Google Drive. Google Classroom is a way that you can actually distribute grade assignments and share, communicate with your students. So here's how I've actually set up my Google Classroom. I've actually, one thing I should tell you too is that when I learned how to use Google tools in my classroom, I asked the technicians in our building to please create 2 fake students. So I created George Washington, which you'll see right here in the top right corner. That's his screenshot of the Google Classroom. And also Abraham Lincoln. And these 2 students actually helped me to be proactive, to prevent fires before we actually put them out. So if there's any test or project, my student teachers, the teachers I'm working with, my collaborators in the middle school, will actually post them in a fake classroom on the internet. We'll log in as either Abraham Lincoln or George Washington, and then actually pretend to be a student. And we'll anticipate questions and concerns. We'll look at the technology issues as we integrate the project. That's been very, very helpful. So before we actually roll it out to the students, we actually then, beforehand roll it out to Lincoln and Washington to make sure that we are thinking about student perspective. So that's very, very helpful. So, and click on Google Classroom. This is not accessible unless the school district actually provides you access. So Google has to know that you're a teacher from the district before you have access to Google Classroom. And the plus sign there actually allows you to create your first class. This is what I've done. That's from the back end of my Google Classroom. And this is what I've organized. And you can organize your classroom with as many classrooms as you feel necessary for you and your students. If you notice, I've got 5 class periods, 6L, 5E, 4, 3, and 1. These are the periods that I actually use to share tests and research notes and projects with the students. Excuse me. Letters A through P, these are actually the curriculum units that I teach from September all the way through June. And I allow my students access to their period folder in September, and I only access these curriculum folders as we move through the school year. So right now, for example, we're actually in the New Nation, letter J. If you notice, I have Social Studies grade 7 as my prefix for every single folder. We have multiple teachers using Classroom in our school, and all of my classrooms, whether it's your period folder or the curriculum folders, will all be close together from a student perspective alphabetically under Social Studies grade 7. So that's one tip I can share with you, that if you just throw it out there as, you know, a curriculum unit like New Nation, for example, the Constitution unit, it'll just appear in the student's point of view alphabetized. So if the French teacher or the English teacher in the middle school that has the same students use Google Classroom, they will be mixed in together. So when you have a common prefix for your classrooms, from the student perspective, they will all be listed alphabetically, and it's easy for the students to find. As we go through the school year, I will offer the next curriculum unit as we move through the curriculum. And as you'll see, it's a fantastic way then to actually have all the teacher materials available for the students to review for the final exam, cumulative final exam. These are the students. This is George Washington's image now. In the New Nation, New Native Americans letter D folder, they now have access to my work. I separate letter J up on the top there is the test in culture Native Americans. I offer my students to test ahead of time, not the answers. They have to look it up on their own, but even a week and a half ahead before the exam is scheduled, they have access to the test. And it's been very productive. The students actually do well on my tests, and they study, prepare, and they learn how to be a good student. Down below the next announcement, you can actually click on announcements down here. There's a plus sign. You can actually create announcements or assignments. You can actually post them from the Google Drive. So it's kind of small, but you can see that this is Geography Worksheet letter A. This is Sacred Brack letter B, which is analysis of ethnocentrism by viewing a culture. The rack actually spelled backwards is car, so it's a great documentary or a piece on our own culture from a different perspective, and the kids learn that they should never judge another culture. This is the inference worksheet, how Native American cultures will live in their geography, and these are actually videos of the Native American nations that we studied in the 5 different geographies: Iroquois, Cherokee, the Sioux in the Great Plains, the Pueblo in the Southwest, and the Nez Perce in the Northwest. And here are the actual notes for each of these Native American nations. So the students have access to all of these materials before the actual curriculum takes place. So I'll give them access to the Native American classroom on the day of the MAPS test, which is the previous unit. So they all have access to the information before we start. And it's almost like flipping the classroom, essentially. How do I make the videos? Good question. We have Screencastify. It's a free download. There are other software programs available. Please check with your district if they have any building or site licenses for any video casting software that might be available for you. Also, Erie BOCES, and some of the BOCES, Erie 2 has them as well. I never have to check the software list to see if they have a bundle license for another video recording. But Screencastify is free, and it's really easy to use. So what we're doing on the actual screen, we record to do a video. So what I would do is open up the PowerPoint presentation. I still use PowerPoint. I've used it since my first days as a teacher. And Screencastify will actually record my voice and actually it's on the screen, and then I can actually create a video and then post it through Google Drive and then through Google Classroom. If you go back here, the list of the resources, A through J, including the test, it's also alphabetized in order on the drive. So when I post the announcement for next year's students in the Native American unit, I can very easily then attach the alphabetized list for every announcement. Makes things a lot easier for me. And if I ever decide to change or add, I can always then upload the file into the Google Drive and post it then. I also, if you notice too, I don't offer the students either a doc or a Word file. I always save it as a PDF file so that they cannot change the actual document. So PDF is very, very important to make sure the students don't alter or change the actual file. It locks them out. So Adobe is very good. And when you have a Microsoft Word document, you can just do a file save as, and then they have the option to change the format down below the file name. Okay. And again, please ask questions if I'm going too fast. Yes. Google Forms is a fantastic way to actually offer the students multiple choice tests. It's easy to actually take a test using Forms if you have access to the Chromebooks in a one-to-one situation. You reserve a card or have a one-to-one situation in your building or district. This is a survey, essentially, and the test questions are actually the survey questions. And then the computer collects the student responses into a spreadsheet. And then from the spreadsheet, then, I can grade 5,000 multiple choice questions for 120 students in less than a minute. It's phenomenal. It saved me so much time, and I wish I had this when I first started my career. So you want to create your own form, you can go to Google Drive, you go to New, and you go to More, and Google Forms is there listed in the purple. And again, this is not a tutorial. So if you want to go to YouTube, they have many videos creating Google Forms. I want to show you how I use it in the classroom, just to get you some ideas of what can be done. For the forms for the Native Americans, I always put in their first name and their last name, and the red star actually means it's a required question. So they cannot even submit their test that can't be done unless they actually answer those questions. And below there we have questions. Geography is the subtitle, so if you want to actually guide the students as to which page you're on in the notes or which section of the textbook or the chapter, you can actually add a subheading as well. When I create the form, I offer to the students their period numbers. This helps me organize with a smaller class roster. If I go to the Native American letter D, I will have about 120 students in my entire team. And the team moves from the same social studies, English, math, and science teachers on a daily basis. The period 1 student roster will be between 20 and 25 students. It's easier for me to manage than who is not taking the test. Absent students. Any questions the kids have, it's much easier to push out a test in the period folder. So for period 1, this is George Washington again, this is his point of view. And I posted an announcement on the back end in period 1, and the students will see this announcement. It's actually an assignment. You can see right here, it's an assignment, not an announcement. An assignment is just a way to share information or files through an attachment. An assignment actually allows me to keep track of who's taking the test and who submitted it or not. And this is the link. It's not live because I'm doing screenshots of the Google form. When George opens up the actual test form, he actually sees an image on the top. This image is the same image that I use in the Google Classroom for the Native American unit. So I have the connection there with images, and it's really easy to actually find appropriate images. I have a ship, a caravel for exploration. I have a great image of the Civil War era. So it depends on the image you want to project. I always think it's a good idea to connect some kind of visual with the student learning. And now you have the test, connected with the classroom, and kids see that. So here we have first name, last name, period number. It's all very important. You also see that I can collect the actual username, which is gwashington20. You can put an image in there of a word bank, and then you can also not only have multiple choice questions, but also fill in the blank from the word bank. Now, if you notice the directions, spelling has to be correct to earn full credit. If you misspell the correct answer, forms will mark it wrong. So if you spell culture, for example, incorrectly, even though we know it's the word culture, the students have to actually be aware that they have to type it correctly from the word bank of above. So I always try to use multiple choice to make it easier for the students to be successful as well as for me to grade. And you can check it on the back end once the information is collected in the spreadsheet. And you can see the red star there to make sure that it is a required question. And the last part of the test is multiple choice. I enjoy using forms because it allows the students to actually see the entire test. So as they roll up or down the test, they can actually see the questions, all of them. And as you know, literacy skill would be to use the test questions to help you succeed with each other, with their own questions. So it's fantastic to see the kids roll up and down, try to find answers within the test. I've actually randomized the order of the answers. So each student will have different lists of possible choices for each question, so it's hard to cheat. If they see that the first answer has been chosen for this question, it may not be the same answer as their own first option, which is very, very important. On the bottom of the test, you'll see the form, you'll see that you can send a copy of the responses to the student. You can also look and see how what percentage that they have accomplished, so that in the middle of the class period, you can say, okay, you have 20 minutes left in the class. You should be halfway done. Look down the bottom of your screen, make sure you're halfway done with the questions. And they cannot submit the test without actually answering every single question. So, and it's all been starred. And on the back end in forms, you can actually randomize the test answers. You can make sure the question is required so they can't skip anything. And it's an amazing way for the students to be successful and go back and check their work. When you hit submit, okay, it collects all the Google Forms answers in a spreadsheet, and Google titles their spreadsheets as essentially sheets. Okay? And Ajax-based program is compatible with Microsoft and comma-separated value files. If you're very involved with sheets and formulas, that's something that you can be involved with as well. So this is now my perspective. Okay? When I click on the word responses from my form, okay, we now see that the student submissions are right here. I've taken the names off of the students. So this is what I see in the back end. Once the students actually have submitted their test, you can see here a screenshot of the information. There is an add-on called Flubaroo. And to go to Google Sheets, you can go to Addons. Right? The Addons is right there under the word responses. Right here. Click on that. You can actually choose your different add-ons. And Flubaroo is one that saved me so much time. When we're doing Google, I want you to please be aware that there are different add-ons for each Google program. So Docs, Sheets, Slides, they all have their own list of add-ons. And it's important that when you talk about add-ons, you make sure that you are in the right program to find Flubaroo or whatever you're working with, okay? So Google Sheets is where you find Flubaroo. This helps you grade multiple choice tools, multiple choice answers, and fill in the blanks. So the second sheet show you here. So this is the first sheet, it's the student submissions. The next one is going to be grades. And I kind of blurred this out a little bit so you wouldn't see the names of the students and their email addresses. When you activate Flubaroo, it's an amazing program. It'll actually allow you to identify the test questions versus the information that identifies the student. So you can actually you can skip certain questions. You can grade certain questions with certain values. You can have 1 point versus 10-point question. You must also take the test. So in other words, the next step to Flubaroo is once you assign a point value for every question, you must find your own answers, and then Flubaroo will measure the student's responses against your own. It's very important to understand you'll take the test in the preview mode, and you'll find your own responses, and then measure the students accordingly. And what's great about Flubaroo is that you can actually then see an item analysis. So you can highlight certain, you can tell Flubaroo that if a question is below 80% or 65% or whatever percentage you choose, please highlight it for me. And once you go through the actual grading, any questions the students did not perform well, you'll see it highlighted. And sometimes, I'm admitting that I got a question wrong. Accidentally, I clicked the wrong button for the answer key. And if all the students, 9% of them got it wrong, I can always very easily go back and change my responses and regrade the assignment. And it can very easily then recalculate and score the grades. So it's not only a good measure for the students, but also a good measure for us to make sure that the answer key is correct. If the answer key is correct and students are getting this wrong, I can always go back and review that concept again in the lesson plans. It's truly an amazing experience. I can also email the students their grades. I can email them the test back. So there's no paper going back and forth at all. When they want to do test corrections, they just copy and paste the questions they got wrong into a document and then send it back to me. So it's an amazing experience. I've cut down on so much paper going back and forth, and you can't lose the test. The kids open up the form, and one thing I want to mention to you is that if you start a form, you have to finish it and submit it before the end of the class period. So if you have, let's say, some required questions, the students are slow to respond, you have 3 or 4 questions left, and the bell's going to ring, what I would encourage you to do is have the kids fill in a fake answer. Okay, just pick either an answer, or if it's a fill in the blank, just put a letter A in there, and then have them submit it. You can always, on the back end in Google Drive, send it back to that student to help finish the grade, and they can change their responses and send it back to you again. So it's important if you do required questions that you finish it up legitimately or with fake answers before the end of the period. If they don't submit it and shut down or sign out, all of the work that they've done before will be lost. It doesn't save anything unless they actually submit it. Does that make sense?
Yes, we've got one question.
Oh, good. Please ask. Okay.
Google Forms now does grading. Are there features in Flubaroo not available through Google Forms?
I've always used Google Forms and not Google Grading. That's something that I haven't explored yet. I know that some people have actually tried both, and they prefer Flubaroo. It just depends on your personal perspective. So I haven't had much experience with Google Grading. I enjoyed Flubaroo a lot, and I will start working with it, at least for the seminar purposes, to see if it actually, how it compares. But I really enjoy Flubaroo, and it's got everything that I know I use in the classroom. But that's the best I can do for you. I would recommend trying as many as you can. I know that there are other possibilities out there besides just Flubaroo and Google Grading too. I just want you to know that Flubaroo works really well for me, and everyone I've offered it to and shared it with has also been very impressed with the capabilities of the program. Okay. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Also, when using forms, if you look at forms here, the questions actually are the questions, and you edit them, you add questions, you can actually add images, you can add different types of responses to the drop-down box, or multiple choice questions, which you saw already, or fill in the blank. You can also click on the next section of the program called responses. I have 124 students that have taken the test. You can actually see a pie chart of the ABC choices. So whether or not they're randomized for the student's perspective, it'll always give me on the back end exactly which responses the kids actually have assigned right, or which order they were in for the students. And I can see that the kids did very well in these two questions. They got the answer correct, and most of them did. So if the pie chart was different, I can always go back and actually identify those concepts and reteach those for the students. Okay? For essays, I just want you to know that I don't accept anything in paper anymore from the students, and the essays are done in class to make sure it's equitable for the students to they have the opportunity to use the technology. So we'll go back to the Native American classroom. This is the Native American essay. I've moved this announcement up above the test now, and the students actually are moving forward. They've researched Native American culture within the nation, the Iroquois, Cherokee, Pueblo, Nez Perce, or the Pueblo. And this is the research project they've done, letters I through Q. And they see the teacher notes there, as well as analyzing primary sources. And this is how I prepare them for the first document-based essay question. I even showed them the rubric ahead of time so they know how they're going to be graded. You can see there that they actually highlight the highest level column of the rubric, which is very important because they're not going to rise to low expectations. I don't teach them the first column of the rubric. So Google Docs is very similar to Microsoft Word. And on the back end, I created Google Doc in the Drive. It actually has as a template that I share with all the students. And when I offer this in the Google Classroom for the students, I can make sure that they actually get their own copy. There's one option there. Forms won't let you do this because forms expect you to have individual responses. But when you share Google Doc, you now can actually have the ability to have the kids just see it only without ever editing it. You can actually share the same document with everyone, and they can actually make comments or changes on the same file. Or you can actually send the same file to every student, all 25 of them in your period classes. And you can set up the essay template any way you'd like. What I've done is I've made sure the students actually are prompted for their name and the period number, and remind them of the task on the essay, the DBQ forms, the sheet that I sent them out earlier in the classroom. Describe the ethnocentrism of Europeans and then defending the culture of Native Americans and prove that they are worthy of respect. This is their task. It's a reminder for them. And they delete the task once they are ready to type their essay. Down below, I actually, on the left column here is a content checklist. I give it to them in class. I go over it with them. But I remind them again of the introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion, and what should be in each of those paragraphs. And the numbers are actually in order of sentences. Yeah, so seventh graders, they have a lot of structure. The first essay, it's not as structured as for the other two essays that I offer them in class. On the left side is the format. And this is what I expect of them. So they can change the document, but I prefer they don't. In other words, if you give them the freedom, I found out that students actually will become very distracted. So the file name is to be very specific with that, even though I know that on the back end who it is. The heading, Times Roman font, is line spacing, the size of the font, all that's the structure for them, and some comments about how to actually type their essay as far as punctuation. So the students will delete this table as well once we're comfortable with the expectations. And both the content checklist and the format actually are within the essay announcements in the Native American unit. Okay. So the capitalization errors in the essay content checklist are letters N and O within the actual classroom. So this is just repetitive and redundant, making sure the kids have absolutely no excuse of their expectations, we hope. Anyway. So now I offer my period 1 class. This is George Washington's point of view here. The Native American culture essay. And this is the template that I just shared with you on the last slide. So this is given now to the students and each individual student has their own copy. Here I have a due date, and the kids know exactly when it's due. It's an assignment, not an announcement. So I can keep track of who did not turn in the assignment in yet. So George opens up the template. You can see the word template above there in the actual filing, and he actually types his essay. He did a pretty good job, actually. With Google, I encourage my students to peer share. And on the back end, I can see how the essay has been edited. So this essay right here for me is poorly done. And we can see the highlighting here of some of the major errors on the avoid list and the grammatical errors and the spelling errors. Oh, that's my dog. And so the students can actually learn to edit and revise each other's essay. And I feel it's very important to share the essays with at least one person so they can actually get another idea of writing and how to actually voice their opinion. So even though the structure is very similar, they do have an opportunity to choose which Native American culture they would like to offer within their body paragraphs, and the Colchin Europeans who are ethnocentric, and they hear different voices too within their piece. So I think it's very important to share the essays too. Once they turn in their essay, okay, they'll, are you sure, you know, that they want to do this, and it's, are you sure, you know, and they're ready to go. Once again, Google collects their responses on a spreadsheet. And go to spreadsheets, for example, you can tell the software, the Google tools, to collect it in a specific spreadsheet. Octopus is another add-on that has been instrumental in my teaching. And again, there are many different ones out there that you can use. I've used Google Octopus on the sheets. It's an add-on. This is your virtual assistant. It allows you to customize feedback tool in a great way to offer differentiation within the classroom. This Octopus is also connected with Rubric. It allows me to attach a rubric right to the template. And so I'm grading 120 essays, for example. I'll show you the example in a little bit. You can actually see the rubric up on top. So here's George Washington's essay they submitted to me. I access this essay through the spreadsheet. And then on the top here is my rubric that I shared with the students before they started writing their essays. They know how they're going to measure success. So use of data, plan of organization, development of ideas, mechanics, arguments, information, and organization. And again, you can modify this any way you want to for your rubric. For use of data, when I click on this tab over here, it gives me a choice of 15, 10, 5, or 0, and the explanation of how to earn the score. I can also add my own number in there. So it's not really quite a 15, but it's more than a 10. I can actually put a number 12 in the window here and move on to the plan of organization, have those tabs light up, click on development of ideas and watch those light up. And eventually I can actually score George Washington's essay right there. I can also record my voice. So instead of actually handwriting remarks on the essay and say, you know, comments on how to improve the essay, or let them know that I did a fantastic job, or you come and see me for help during lunch or study help. So anything you want to record your voice, and then you can submit it and then move into the next essay in the alphabetical order on the list. Let's keep going back to the spreadsheet if you don't want it. Okay? I can also email the scores right to George Washington. I don't do this because it takes me about a week or so. Honestly, it takes a little bit longer to do it this way than normal with pen and paper. But I just think that, you know, it's really neat using the software and you know, recording your voice. And it depends on the internet connection. It can slow down a little bit. It gives you about a 2-minute voice recording, which takes a little while to upload and process and collect the information in the back end, the link. And I would definitely check off this email scores to students right away, because they will get the scores right away. And some kids in period 1, for example, will get their scores maybe possibly 5 or 6 days before period 9. So just make sure you're aware of that. Make sure they don't get the scores right away. You can ask me if you have any questions, okay? This is what it looks like in the back end. This is my period 2 classes. You got the first name and last name. You have an email link, I'm sorry, an internet link to their work. You can see if it's turned in or not. Even if it's not turned in, because it's my template, and they changed the copy that I gave them, I can see their work here, even though it's not technically submitted. So I can still grade their work and get back to them and say, hey, this is your score so far. And usually when they see a low score, it motivates them to come in. They're Hamburg students. I'm very blessed that they're in an ethic and a work value. So you can still grade it even though it's not actually officially turned in. Here, across the top, it's hard to read. I did it intentionally so I can protect the students' identities. But here's actually the rubric scores. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not the rubric scores. This is how many times I actually edited and revised their essay and how many times I actually did the rough draft. So here you can keep track of the editing process, the work that they've done, and you can see how they actually write. How many times actually people actually comment. So this young lady over here has actually had privilege of having 14 different comments from 3 different people on her essay. And that's important to see, because if you don't have anyone connecting with you that can actually talk to the kids, hey, what, we were absent, why don't you share with anybody else what's going on here? So that's important. You can figure out who actually helped them with their essay as well. The next set of columns here is the actual rubric itself. And so when I scored the first student's essay here, this is the actual score they received out of 15. And you can collect this information here. One thing I found out too, that you need to create a formula for a cell that will actually add up all of these scores to get a final grade for your student. Once you have the formula correct for one column, you can simply copy and paste it all the way down to 120 cells that you have in the secondary level for all your students. Then those numbers, the total score of the essay, will be placed manually into whatever grade book. Okay. If you type up any comments, okay, you can actually type up any comments if you want to, as well as actually record your voice. So if you have any type of comments for the students, they will show up here, and a link to your recorded voice will actually be shown in the column, the next column to the right as well. Are there any questions so far?
Not yet.
Okay, so for tests, please remember to create a test. You use the form. When you administer the test, you send it out to the classroom. To collect the student responses, you need a sheet. And the sheet add-on is Flubaroo to grade the test and send the students their scores back through email. And the students will get, depending on what you want to do, their entire test back. So it's the correct and the incorrect answers and responses and what they offered you. You can control that with what they see in the email. Plus, you can actually type a personalized note as well. The essays. You can actually create a template in Docs and send it to your classes through Classroom. They write their essays, appear at it, and submit their work using Rubric and Octopus for the teacher tools to evaluate their work. You get any Screencastify or screen device that captures the videos to help them post your presentations. Flubaroo, Rubric, and Octopus. Please remember, Google is not a grade book. Okay? Any questions so far? I got about 10 minutes left. I want to share something else with you. Web store. Okay, here's what you can actually find all those information. And DocAssist is another one that you can actually use to grade essays as well. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, if you have any questions, you've got the question and answer section on your screen. You can go ahead and type those in now, and then Jason will be able to answer them.
Okay. As you're doing that, I'm going to show you one more way to actually use in the classroom. I've actually had the students do, can you see my screen still? You can still see it?
No, it unshared again, so you have to put it back up.
Okay, please be patient with me, I'll do that in a second. Keep losing you. Sorry about that. I don't know why when I'm clicking that actually shuts off my screen. So I'm sorry about that. I'll get it back on. We got a few minutes here now. Can you still hear my voice? Can you still hear my voice, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Are we good now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is I teach early American history. So all my students actually will choose an Underground Railroad leader or an abolitionist from the list. And I've worked with a professor of history at Washington University to help me design this. We found out together that there are certain roles, and we identify those: green, red, blue, and purple. Green are the fugitive slaves running to freedom. Some became abolitionists later. Red are Canadians who helped fugitive slaves begin a new life in Ontario, which is often forgotten, the end of the line. Blue is abolitionists who wanted to end slavery, who were very adamant about, essentially breaking the law and the Fugitive Slave Act, and they usually were station masters. And purple are abductors who went to the South to help guide fugitive slaves, such as Harriet Tubman. The black actually is an introduction. So the students actually will choose one abolitionist leader at random. Okay. There are online databases for the school, and World Book, Brillier, and FactSite, as well as EasyWeb, that want the students actually use. So the kids have access to this, even with, we have books also, which are fantastic, and the librarians actually purchase books. We love to have the books as well. But to have the information available for them. And here's how I'm going to grade them. Okay, again, the highlighted section is there for all the different criteria: the rubric analysis, content, organization, graphics, Google quality, eye contact, and avoidance and distractors. I post this to the students. This is actually a form that I use. And what's amazing about Google Forms is that you can actually create certain sections. And what we found out is that for each category of abolitionist or Underground Railroad leader, there are certain research questions that are more appropriate. So the first section of the form is, essentially your name, period number, who you're researching, and then what category they're in. And once you click on, I'm introducing the video conference, when the student is live with the form, it'll jump down to these questions. And they will not see anyone else's questions but their own. If the student is a Canadian, if chosen a Canadian, well, fugitive slaves beginning their life in Ontario, they will skip past the first two sections and go right to the Canadian questions, and they'll type in their answers using the books and the online databases. And I'll collect those on the back end in the spreadsheet. So the sections are created based on the person that they've actually chosen and their role in the Underground Railroad. And this is a fantastic way for anyone to focus the students' research or to get them to a certain level of understanding and expose to certain questions. Okay? So the Google Forms are really awesome to do that. Did I lose you again?
You unshared your screen, but if anyone has any questions, still feel free to ask them.
I'm really sorry. I don't know what I'm doing that does that. Try again. So now, once the students actually have researched their project, they then are given a template. The Google Slides template actually has We okay?
Yes.
Okay, so now, if you look at the screen on the panel on the right here, and on the left, the student who has John Brown will access all of these slides, but they're responsible only for their slide. This takes an incredible amount of trust because the person who has John Brown to go in and mess with Henry Box Brown's slide. So I instill that kind of trust within the 7th graders, which is more than obviously the minimal Common Core standards. And the biggest issue we've had so far is that the students actually going to try to change the background of their slide. They changed everybody's slide, but it's really easy to do. I encourage the kids, if they make a mistake, both hands up, and then I go to their computer and just do an undo, Control Z, and it's really easily fixed. I tell them if they don't do that, we can always go back to File, and we go to Revisionist History, and then go back. And that means that if you allow this mistake to continue for 20 minutes or whatever, if I go back in time, you will lose all the work that you have in 20 minutes. So they're very forthright with admitting to their mistakes, and they realize it's just an accident. And it's great seeing that level of trust. It's like, hey, I made a mistake, help me out. It's easier to do it this way and fix on their computer than for me to do it on the back end. So, and you can actually see, as a teacher, even the students, who is on your slide. So whoever's logged in will be up on the upper section of the slide here, of the actual slideshow. And then down here, you actually see little indications of who's actually in each slide, okay? And what I do is, when we actually present in the past, I've had to actually do 10 or 15 slides in a PowerPoint presentation. We had to save at a certain spot in the server. Kids had to log in. They had to find their presentation. It just took a lot of time. Now, with only one slide open to the period, the kids can very quickly go through each of their slides, which is fantastic. And it works out really well for the kids. And it's a time saver for me, and I can do more. When I also work with the Hamburg Chamber of Commerce and try to get business partnerships from the events that I do for the students, they even told me that they prefer now not 10 to 12 slides in the business profession, but just one slide. And they want, 5 or 10 minutes, sell your product or your service, and we're going to move on and make a decision. So this is actually, I didn't realize this, it's actually what they're looking for in the business field as well. One slide, you put your pictures in there, and you tell your story and use the pictures, images to teach, evolutionism, which is fantastic. And the kids are taking notes when they're done presenting on all the different people in the abolitionist era. And it's a wonderful way to have a personal connection with history and see the different roles of the Underground Railroad leaders. This year, we're actually connecting with a school in Arkansas through a video conference. We're going to be sharing our research with my friends' high school students. And then we're going to do a discussion on civil disobedience. These abolitionists actually broke the law. So we're going to get involved in discussion now. Once the students present some of their information, we'll get in discourse about, our laws. Should laws always be followed? I mean, can you decide whether a law is good or bad? And what kind of society you live in if we can decide which laws to follow? And did the abolitionists do the right thing? And how do we protest laws? What's the right way of doing it? So it really has been an ongoing process for us to move forward with the next level of Google integration in the classroom to video conferences now. So it's been wonderful seeing the student growth as well as my own in integrating new technology. So are there any questions at all?
Don't think there are any more questions. I just want to thank everyone again for attending this EdTech webinar. You will receive a certificate of completion for attending today, so keep an eye on your email next week for that, as well as a link to the copy of the recording of this webinar. We're also planning on having another webinar series this spring, so watch out for that as well. And thank you so much to Jason for presenting today.
Thank you. Here's an example of one of the students' the classes. So you can see the different personalities of the kids. So I just want to share that with you very quickly before we end up. Okay? Thank you very much for being here. Have a good night, everyone.